Oh, hello there, YouTube.
It's been a while.
Straight off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Straight in with a wink there from Brian. Solid move. Sorry for the lack of YouTube videos recently.
Well, I mean, all they would have seen is us shivering in the garage, and it's a little bit warmer tonight, so we went with it. Plus, I didn't want to take out the new the newer camera that we're going to be using just yet. And so when you said, well, let's live stream, I was like, okay, sure. So we're still on the Logitech.
Yeah.
Until the Lumix comes out. Which
Nothing wrong with that, Brian.
I want to get a nice tripod for it and keep it all set up nicely. So
I would get a quadruped for it.
Yeah.
The more legs, the better.
We only have 2. We're all right.
Yeah, but I mean, what are arms but legs on the top part of your body with opposable thumbs? I know, it's deep.
Yeah.
I mean, not really.
I mean, it's not too far off. Why is our table shaking all of a sudden? This never happens.
I feel like our shim got knocked out. Probably in the great Mad Libs podcast flood of 2022. That's my guess. Watch as Brian tries to fix our table.
Well, no, there's still a shim over there. So it's got to be your bottom right.
Yeah.
Where the audio is.
Yeah, and the shim's knocked out.
Oh.
Don't worry, Brian, I'll edit this out in post.
Oh, your phone. I got it. Hold on. Got it.
Oh, nice.
Got the phone.
All right, lift up on my side a little bit. A little more. Use your muscle. All right, that should be.
Yeah.
Nail
Good.
it. God,
Now we're set. Your phone's right there, by the
I
way.
should have been a table mechanic.
I mean, your dad did build this. It's in your blood.
Oh, is that what it is?
It's in your blood.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Yeah. Well, we're not gaming tonight. We'll have to do that again. That was fun.
Yeah, no, I was just saying because you said it's in my blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh my gosh, Brian's got some gas prices pulled up over there. Bless you, Brian. 440. Where's that at?
Miami.
Ugh. You do know that's where the girls go Ami Ami, right?
I was thinking the same song.
Yeah. You can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Yeah, $4.95 for premium, $4.45 for regular. I was at the little gas station down the street here, and it was like $4.10, which is pretty freaking crazy. But I really think that we'll see $5, especially in the next like 2 or 3 months.
I wouldn't be surprised. And we're going to talk a little bit about it. You know, the idea of gas and like the whole drill baby drill. Like Jen Psaki came to play ball. She is just a badass, by the way. And they were asking her about it. And she's like, well, why don't you ask the oil companies what they're doing with their already pre-approved 9,000 leases? And then it got me thinking, they don't want to drill more. Look at their margins. Why would they want to oversupply and bring those costs down? They're going to have to pay more people. They're going to have to get more equipment. And then their margins are going to be disrupted. Why would they want to do that?
Because it's better for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and in this
capitalist
capitalist market, that's what, oil companies want to do. What's best for everyone.
Yeah. Totally.
So the whole like drill baby drill thing is just like absolutely bonkers to me. And like oil companies don't want to do it. And I hadn't even considered until Jen Psaki said like there are 9,000 pre-approved leases just waiting to be drilled if they want. The oil companies don't want to.
Yeah.
Everything in America that is like all capitalist entities, right? It's not just about profits. It's about the margins. How can I make my margins larger? It's not only the gross profits. It's I want to make the margins larger. And that's like what got me thinking. It's like the oil companies don't want to disrupt their margins. They're at all-time highs, right? People are willing to pay more for a barrel of oil than they have in a long, long time. Gas prices are going to hit an all-time high in the next few weeks.
People are more willing to pay for a higher price at the pump, you're saying, or for the actual barrel?
Yeah, well, for the barrel, and then, of course, that translates to the pump, and more people are willing to pay that price. Plus, we are essentially just getting out of the pandemic, so people are just like, fuck it, I want to go places. Like, I don't care about the cost. Now, of course, some people don't have that luxury, but in general, people are going to make sacrifices elsewhere because they really do want to go other places that they haven't been able to for 2 years. So everything else is going to go up. You know, because the movement of goods is going to go up. So logistically, the supply chain was already having issues, which we were rectifying. But those gas prices are going to be built into the cost of moving the goods. So the cost of goods are going to continue to go up as gas does. So I know it's beyond just saying, hey, we need to give oil companies more land. That's not the case. They have plenty of land. They don't want to. I don't know. I was just thinking of that, and it really struck me when she was like, there are 9,000 pre-approved areas for drilling. And she just put it right back on the reporter, who is, I don't know, some Newsmax or OAN or whatever. And so she put it back on them. She put it back on him and was like, why don't you go ask the oil companies? Because they have the ability to drill more. They don't need more land. They don't need more leases. They want more leases, so they want to push the narrative.
What was the reporter's original question?
Hold on.
Is there a cat in here?
No, sorry.
We're here at the People's Convoy in Maryland, and there are
Oh, that's not it. Wait.
hundreds of...
You can turn it up, Brian.
No, I want to, but this isn't what I sent. Maybe it's further. No, it got lost. Here, hold on. I'll look it up on my...
Yeah, I don't think Jen
So
said.
she said, not she, sorry. The reporter, all right, so I wanted to ask about oil prices. She said, sure. That's not it either. Oh. Fox News' Peter Doocy asked, we're asking other countries to think about maybe pumping more oil. Why not just do it here? To be very clear, federal policies are not limiting the supplies of oil and gas, Psaki said. She again noted that there are 9,000 pre-approved oil and gas drilling leases that have gone unused by oil and gas companies. And so, like, I look at these things, and it's just... Clearly, there's a lot of misinformation. I sent you one TikTok of this guy who I started following. He was actually like a really, really high-level person in an oil company. And so he's very knowledgeable, and he, like, combats some of the misinformation. And he's supportive of either side. Like, I mean, he talks about, like, what both sides have done and done right and done poorly. For instance, you know, the Trump deal between Saudi Arabia and Russia in I think it was 2019, when they were flooding the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they were flooding the market, Donald Trump, came to an agreement where they would stop producing so much oil. The United States would also continue producing oil, but that way the oil they were producing wasn't getting, put at a zero sticker price.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that deal is actually through 2022. So Saudi Arabia and Russia are still operating under that less is good. And so therefore that is creating a marketplace that we're seeing now, because they were flooding it and then they halted production and slowed it down. Now we're seeing the ramifications of that slowdown, because there's still, like, the market never really hit an equilibrium. So I don't know. I just found it really interesting.
Yeah.
The idea of, the impact on oil. And then, I was talking with my wife and I'm like, if you think about, let's say the taxes, the oil prices go up or whatever, the gas pump price goes up about 50 cents. That's frustrating. But if you have like a 15-gallon tank, you're spending an extra $7.50.
Yeah.
That is not that much, considering it's to boycott a country that is attacking a sovereign nation and trying to illegally capture it for itself.
I don't think anybody's trying to make that point.
I think a lot of people, no, I'm saying people are bitching way too much about the price of gas going up. It's like, this is one of the ramifications. Would you rather us not sanction Russia? Would you rather us actually continue like the Biden administration is talking about completely shutting down any Russian oil or gas?
That's a good idea.
But it's gonna raise the gas prices further.
Yeah, no, and then there's people I think like you, but definitely like me. Like, I don't care. Let them go high, baby.
Right, and so
I'll do it. Yeah, I'd fucking triple the gas price if I could fuck both China and Russia. I just gotta pee really bad.
All right, sounds good.
Keep the show going, Ryan.
Oh, I will. It's good to be back on YouTube. I'm not good at doing jokes on the spot. Man. I don't know. I just feel like, Vladimir Putin has the media wrapped around his finger. He knows how divisive it is in America. I think he has recognized the ability to bring one side the direction he wants and how polarized the other side will get. And so that's why having these conversations, having a podcast about politics is so important to me, is because it's not just about being right. It's about helping others not fall into traps. And there are obviously some major issues within the Democratic Party. But when it comes to who's getting played, I think it's quite clear which party's getting played. So I think with the Democrats, they have shit to work on with passing laws that will really progress America. I think there is some status quo stabilization that they want that I'm not a fan of. But when we look at the geopolitical game that's being played by Putin, I think he knows if he can just drag the right a little bit further, it'll divide us further, because not only are they getting dragged further, it upsets the left further, and then we polarize, just because now it's about you're fucking everything up, and it divides us and polarizes us more and more by the day. I was thinking about like the algorithms that we look at, and he knows how to manipulate people more than ever. And like the alt-right, right? It doesn't start with them all the way to the right. What happens is you say one little truth, a half-truth even, that gets people emotional, and you slowly bring them along further and further down the spectrum. Like, I can get behind that. Yeah, no, that actually makes some sense. I might not know for sure, but like that makes sense. And then you slowly get dragged along further and further, right? And then all of a sudden you're hitting like the Bannon levels of alt-right, and then you can get even further into like the white supremacists. But it doesn't start with like, man, I really like listening to Steve Bannon. His voice gives me calm. It starts little by little, and the algorithm knows not to pull you to Steve Bannon right
Does Steve
away.
Bannon have a bad or a good voice?
No,
Oh,
no, he's a toad. Anyways, the algorithm will pull you a little bit, and Vladimir Putin understands both the way the algorithm works, but also our own internal algorithm, the way our mind works. So it wasn't necessarily to like take you and say, oh, well, you're pro-Russia. It's just little by little. And like you have the Tucker Carlsons of the world saying, well, you know, Vladimir Putin didn't do anything wrong. He's fighting for his own security, and he's doing, you know, NATO was being too aggressive. And this had started, you know, under Trump, right? NATO is bad. It was an unfair deal. It wasn't that, you know, Russia was good. It was that the NATO deal was unfair. We were contributing too much and others weren't enough. So we needed to get out of that deal.
yeah.
That's how it started.
I'm gonna pause you
Okay.
because I think you're going full podcast and we're not recording yet.
Okay. Sorry.
Is that cool?
Yeah, no. You're good. You're good. You're good.
I didn't want. I hate stopping your train of thought, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, we'll we'll get back into it.
right.
I couldn't. There was a joke. You know, I hear these jokes. I seriously, I'll watch a TikTok or like whatever, some sort of stream or whatever. I hear a joke. I'm like, oh man, Kevin would love that. I should share that. And then like 10 hours later, I don't fucking remember. I don't even remember the basis of it. It's like I don't do like little one-liner jokes very well.
I don't either. I just
No, you do. And you have a natural like dad joke vibe.
I think the thing is I think that I'm funny, and me laughing at myself is the actual funny part.
No, it's funny. It is funny. I would tell you, it's like I'd be like, dude, that's a swing and a miss.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like dad jokes.
Anna didn't like my loser joke today.
No, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and and that's why I changed it when I told you, because when I told her, I was like, I always told my mom that I'd be in the Olympics, and she said, "Well, it'd definitely be the Winter Olympics because you're a real loser." And then when Anna didn't laugh at my joke, I was like, I'm going to tell Brian this, but I'm going to make Anna the villain. All right, let's jump into this.
All right, sounds good.
Let's break out. Come on, let's break out. Break out. Tell everybody break out. We about to, it's time. Let's go, let's ride, let's roll. Got me feeling so free now. It's exactly what I need. Yeah, we're knocking down the door. Turn up a little more. Hey, what you waiting for? Break out. Oh, we on the map. I can take you now where the party at. We the ones that he just let into the back.
And we are live.
We're live.
It's happening.
Always.
And forever.
And on YouTube again.
It's happening again.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, so
This is
it's
very exciting.
It is exciting. I do think in general when we do live streams and we kind of get back into the swing of that, we'll be a little bit more involved with the chat and like, you know, kind of engage the whole YouTube experience a little bit more.
Definitely.
I know tonight, like I really want to focus on the podcast as usual, just because
Absolutely.
we're getting back to what's going on in Ukraine. I think we're gonna give a little update on Ukraine. I think we're gonna talk about what's going on with the situation itself, like what is actually happening in Ukraine, and then also what's been going on, you know, in terms of foreign policy, and then what's going on here with regards to how we're dealing with Ukraine and how people are receiving it here, and some of the effects that we're already feeling, even though we're not directly engaged in the warfare.
Right.
We are already feeling the effects. So I think that's something important.
Let me ask you this, because I know you made me take the reins on the last episode.
Sure.
So I can already sense in the way that you're behaving this evening since I've gotten here,
Mhm.
that you're real riled up.
Yes.
I can tell.
Yes.
I can tell because, normally when we start a live feed, even though this one was, last minute, it's all jokes when we're setting up. I have a punchline, you laugh, I chuckle because I made you laugh. It fills me with great joy. But today there was a fire in your eyes. And so what do you think? And I know that we have some other things to talk about, but since you brought up Ukraine, really quickly,
Yeah.
what do you think upsets people the most about the war that's going on in Ukraine? And what do you think the actual biggest issue is?
Wow. So that's a really good question. I think that you can't sum it up into one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issues at hand I think there's a multiple causation situation here, meaning some people are really upset because they have Ukrainian family, or they're just natural humanitarians that really care about the world.
Certainly.
I think there are people that believe in the politics behind it, the good and bad that's happening. I think the story itself of Ukraine is very intriguing because we've seen a lot of heroism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the actions of President Zelensky have been far more than just admirable. I think if you took what Zelensky is doing and even shrunk it down to a microcosm of being a coach at a high school basketball team or a manager at a corporation or whatever the case is, where you have to lead people, he has exemplified everything you could want in a leader. And it's not just the badass quotes, but it's everything he does. For instance, he was going to do a press conference. And of course, the president of any country wants to be dressed to the nines and, sit in front of the podium with its microphones and stand high above everyone. And, the spotlight is on them and they need to shine in that moment. And I saw Zelensky in one of his interviews or one of his press briefings. He pulled a chair over to the side of the podium and he put it down. He sat down and he shook the hands of some of the reporters that were there. And he leveled the playing field. It wasn't about him being above everyone, making these executive decisions. It was him relating to people. And there could be no more important thing that he does right now, because not only is that significant for the morale of his own people, but that relatability and that vulnerability has spoken to the hearts of the rest of the world. And that's why there's so much investment in what's going on. He humanized the whole situation in moments like that. We've seen so much brutality already with the Russian bombings. We've seen, I think the newest totals are 400 civilians have died and over 1.5 million refugees have fled the country, going over to Poland and other parts of Europe. And so there's a certain element tugging on our heartstrings that this isn't just a bunch of numbers and a bunch of bombings. These are human beings. And for me, I know at first when I heard like the worship story where you said go fuck yourself and the sunflower seeds, like I was hyped.
Yeah.
But the more I've seen it, the more human element there is to it. For instance, tonight I saw a clip of, I think Jason sent it to me or both of us, or it was a Twitter post from Idina Menzel. For those of you that don't know who she is, she's the incredible artist that actually sang the song Let It Go. And she tweeted it out saying, "We see you." And it was this little girl in a bomb shelter singing "Let It Go" in Ukrainian. And everyone in there just enjoying that moment, forgetting that they're in a bomb shelter. And for me, that's why I'm just like, there's so much humanity here, and I want the world to do more. And I understand, and I'll talk about it, why we can't just rush to do more because of the vulnerabilities that would present. But man, just sitting back and letting Ukraine defend itself is just absolutely heart-wrenching. It just racks with my emotions. So yeah, I don't know if I adequately answered that question.
You didn't capture it, but I think that was still important. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so to go back, like, what is the most important aspect of it all? I think the foreign aspect that's most important would be, when does Putin stop then? Like, what if the invasion of Ukraine isn't going well and he's forced to make more drastic measures? For instance, launching a nuclear missile.
Okay.
I think domestically, we've been far more involved with this whole plan all along. But one thing Vladimir Putin has been able to do with even the American public is play us like a fiddle.
So you think that's what we should be most worried about?
Yeah. I think the way we've been able to be played by some politicians, by social media, by media in general, I think is very...
I just think that's business as usual, man. Somebody manipulating the system. I don't think that's... and I don't think it's the first time something like that's been done. And I know that you said off air, or maybe you said it when we first started the YouTube clip, that, Putin's doing a great job of that, and he always kind of has.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think that's the biggest issue. To me, the biggest issue is just that, and actually it kind of ties in with your point. The thing that we should be worried most about is how this divides the country. Mm-hmm. And so that partially plays in with what you're saying, and I know that you're probably going to go a little bit more into how you think he's manipulating the American people, which is, of note. But I thought that for sure when this all started happening, everybody in Congress was working together. They're like, okay, this is bad. This is something that we need to do. But it's like, this is something that we need to handle. How long did that, camaraderie actually last for? It wasn't, on the same level as 9/11. You know what I mean? No. Where everyone's like, yeah, fuck them. We're the best. Let's band together. Let's do this. Mm-hmm. And so I wish it would have lasted longer, because this is not something to necessarily be divisive about. This is something that we should be able to look at from the outside in, which is something we should all be thankful for, that we're not in Ukraine. And also we're not in Russia, because you know what? There's a lot of Russian people that are completely against this too.
Yes.
And it's like they're being thrown into it. There's nothing that they can do. And that's something that I think that we easily forget as well, is that we also need to feel badly for the Russian people as well.
I 100% agree with that. Because you got to keep in mind, Putin was not elected in a fashion that really represents a democratic nation.
Right.
Let's be very clear about that.
Yeah.
And so he knows how to talk about elections and the democratic process to swing it your way better than probably most. He's former KGB. He was Russian intelligence. He knows how to manipulate and play that game.
Yeah.
The United States intelligence agencies know how to overthrow governments. We've done it before. And so, Putin used some of our own tactics against us. And so, in 2016 and then again in 2020, we saw a lot of that manipulation happening. But to go back to your other point, I couldn't agree more. You had, Republicans coming out and almost going too far, right? Mm-hmm. Lindsey Graham came out and said we need he basically called for Putin's assassination on Twitter. Now, you and I talking about it on a podcast, a little bit different. You and I thinking about it, probably every American has thought about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's very justified.
Where do we
but
get
as a
explosive
sitting
cigars?
as a sitting senator that
Yeah.
actually has influence into making those decisions, you absolutely, under no fucking circumstances, can tweet that out.
No.
So he was going too far. And then Ted Cruz said, hey, like, we need to, sanction them, cripple them, all of that. And that's great, all well and good, but we should not be looking to assassinate. And I actually agreed with Ted Cruz. Like, it was not the time or place to be saying those types of things. With that said, when we talk about these economic sanctions, they hurt Putin, right? They hurt the oligarchs, but it doesn't cripple them long term. What it really does is cripple the Russian people.
Yeah.
Because when the ruble is worth nothing, okay,
basically is
Putin,
at this point,
Putin
yeah.
can't go out and buy another yacht. Or he might have to sell some of his castles or Florida properties or whatever he has in Trump Tower. He might have to do that. That's different. There are Russian people that are not going to be able to buy bread, milk.
Well, there's going to be a lot of Russian people that aren't going to be able to buy anything anyways. I know Visa and MasterCard both
Stop processing.
Stop processing for Russian transactions. And I know the scary part about that is they picked up, but China basically stepped in. And I can't remember what it's called that they have. It's like Alliance or Ally or something like that. But they have their own processing systems that now Russia is going to be using just so that they can make transactions, so that they can buy things as a country.
Right, and I'm saying like long term, like maybe the ruble doesn't ever really come back to what it once was, and that's fine when you're a billionaire and you lose half of your value, you're still worth $500 million.
And that's only if you have $1 billion.
Right. And so if you have a net worth of $30,000, like you make, let's say $25,000 a year and you've saved up and whatever, you lose half of that. That is dramatically worse.
Oh, absolutely.
So when we're looking to cripple them economically and sanction the shit out of them, that's really good to like hopefully deter the Putins and the other oligarchs. But at the same time, is that really damaging the greater good, right? Because those people are going to suffer. And what happens when people are suffering? It leads to raised crime. It leads to hate. It leads to suffering, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where we start to see, in Afghanistan, right? They saw the suffering that was going on. And so Osama bin Laden can get people to, they're already agitated. Now I'm just giving that agitation direction. It was the same thing here in America. Yeah. The people that stormed the Capitol, I will say it time and time again, they had a right to be agitated just about their life. The American system is failing them, but they put their support behind the wrong man, and they took that agitation and directed it towards democracy instead of the system that has been broken. The election system, for all intents and purposes of this conversation, were not rigged, right? Yes, voting laws need to be better, gerrymandering, et cetera, et cetera. But you can go, the machines weren't rigged against you, right? So that's the problem. And so we're seeing this erosion of democracy because of people like Putin, but we're also seeing the erosion of an economy that supports millions and millions of people. And so while I want to deter Putin from making mistakes, this man seems like he's just doing whatever he wants. He's an authoritarian. That's how it works. And usually the end of any authoritarian regime is when the leader has no support left, so he just goes out there and does whatever he wants and ends an entire population's control.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it with any situation, whether it's Saddam Hussein or Lenin or Hitler or any authoritarian. When they start to lose control of the narrative, right? So Putin is going into Ukraine. He can't go back without controlling all of Ukraine.
Right.
The narrative is, I'm protecting you from NATO. And now, with all of the propaganda channels getting hacked and shut down and all these other things, and the whole rest of the world is saying this is wrong, the Russians are seeing that Putin has lost the narrative. So what does that man do? Because he can't go back to the table. So he has to continue to push forward. There is no resolution where Ukraine either walks away free and Russia doesn't like have to completely retreat and say like, sorry, this shouldn't have happened. Like he can't go back on this and say, yeah, I was wrong here, because he doesn't survive that.
Yeah. I watched a very interesting interview with him, and I only watched about a 5 or 10 minute segment, something like that, because the man can talk.
Vladimir Putin?
Yeah. But he was basically, he was sitting down, he was doing a press conference, and then like I don't know if he thought he was done speaking or got confused midway through the speech, but he like stood up. Have you seen this clip?
No.
So he stands up like he's gonna, all right, thanks guys, thanks for coming out, and then he sits back down, and it's almost like maybe he had gotten something wrong in his speech, because he then goes on like, oh yes, the war is going very well, everything is going according to plan. It was a very, very strange. Not like he really is like he's missed a step now or something, or missing a step or whatever. But it was odd. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same Vladimir Putin that is ready to install the urinary bladder in his pant leg so that he can give longer speeches.
Yeah, I do think. Well, and so that's another thing is I was reading up on this. Is he's become more and more erratic.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a counterpoint that I saw, and it struck me, and I was like, maybe I have been misconsidering this and not fully understanding the long game, because he's so well known for playing chess while everyone's playing checkers. And so, there's been photos of him and Macron, that first meeting, the table, was so far apart, and they're sitting there, and it's like weird. And then the tables keep getting longer with every time the media is taking pictures, and his speeches are getting more erratic and less sensical. And so it could be the narrative that he's trying to paint himself as erratic so that people will think he's definitely going to shoot off a nuclear missile. And then he has leverage in negotiations, because right now he can't even fully penetrate Ukraine.
Yeah.
Let alone, what happens when he steps up to the next, 5 world powers combined. Like once he goes beyond Ukraine, he is now infringing on NATO soil, and you have 19 of the top 25 armies in the world.
Yeah.
All joining together to silence you. So, what leverage does he have there, except he's a crazy man? He'll fire a nuke at anyone.
Yeah, and then you and I were talking about this too earlier, and I know that you have other things to get to, so if you want to stop and talk, you stop me anytime.
I got all night, baby.
I got more questions for you.
As long as the Mad Libs community wants to hear us talk about it, I'll talk all night.
I don't know if they want that, but they do want to watch you wink. You can see that on our YouTube page. We should make a Twitter of you doing that, or what? Not a Twitter. What's the other one? The
TikTok.
Tick-a-tack. Yeah, ticky-tacks.
I made a TikTok.
I know. I saw your ticky-tack.
Yeah, my wife caught me in a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, Anna said something about that ticky-tack that you put out there. And she's like, gosh, what were you saying? Oh, you're talking about Five Below. I think she was instantly offended because, Noel and her are the exact same thing. Anna would definitely go make a return at Five Below.
Yeah. So
and I was like, no, honey, he's 100% accurate.
Yeah, they make the return at Five Below, but then it allows them I'm already out, so I might as well go to TJ Maxx and Old Navy. So you're better off telling your wife to say, no, you don't need to return it. I'll throw out that $5 item or less, because it's going to cost me $100 at TJ Maxx and $50 at Old Navy to recoup the $5 that I just got back from Five Below.
Yeah,
and it is accurate. I will.
Yeah.
You know what? But we love our wives.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And so they deserve that right sometimes. But if I'm looking at it logically, it would be far more cost effective to just throw out the $5 item, whatever
or
it
not
is.
go to Five Below in the beginning.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
Anyways, enough about our wives. And now I think I forgot my question, didn't I? Oh yeah, no, I got it back. I'm back.
Okay.
So say Putin continues on through Ukraine. That's probably going to take him another couple of months, I'd imagine, at least.
I mean, maybe it
Well,
depends.
especially if the deal goes through, because I do know that Ukraine has been asking for fighter jets from Poland.
Yeah, so the United States is supplying Poland with fighter jets.
Yeah, they're basically backlogging,
right,
and then Poland will give their jets to Ukraine.
Right, and I think that's a great move, and I think it's important.
Yeah.
What Zelensky has actually been asking for a lot, and I was actually very in favor, and then I had a really good conversation with Jason, and then I started doing a little more research, and I was a little more against it, but President Zelensky had asked for a no-fly zone.
Yeah.
And so I was actually very agreeable to that. Here's my problem is I feel like we're watching World War I and World War II play out, and we're appeasing this asshole authoritarian just like we did. Like, oh, well, yeah, you took Czechoslovakia, no big deal. And then what? And then it's like, oh, well, now he's marching through Poland and he's marching through Russia. And like, that's what Hitler did. He just kept going. And so while I understand we don't want to engage, I have such a hard time sitting back, and I'm not signing up. I'm not rushing over to Ukraine either, but I have such a hard time with us just sitting back and not doing more. But I also understand, like, we just got out of Afghanistan. We cannot jump into another war.
Well, I think the second we send our fighter jets over there, it's World War III.
Yeah, and so
there's no takebacksies after that, and there's no way to justify it to Putin. That's for sure. So I mean, it's like that's
because the way that works is if you create a no-fly zone, and this is what I learned. If you create a no-fly zone, that's all well and good until you actually have to enforce that. And the moment you shoot down a plane, that's the only way to truly enforce it, is like you're flying your planes, they're flying theirs, and you say you need to back off. This is a no-fly zone. Well, that offender has two choices: to either continue flying and call your bluff, or retreat. Well, if they don't retreat and they're calling your bluff, you now are obligated to shoot them down. You've declared it a no-fly zone, and you need to enforce that. Well, now you've shot down an enemy plane, and you are fully engaged in warfare. So that's the problem with creating a no-fly zone. Even if all of NATO does it, which I think would be the only answer that could be, is if NATO, all of the 25 nations want to do this, then so be it. My other frustration, I had this when I was talking with some people, was like Ukraine has had a special relationship with NATO. Like they are actually claimed to be in a special relationship with NATO. They have special privileges, and they contribute, and they do different things. And so if they're already basically accepted, like they're a cousin of NATO, and now they're like in a situation where they need our help, they are applying to be a part of NATO, but they didn't qualify right away. Well, what are we doing? And we were the ones in 1994 that asked them to de-arm. They have no nuclear power because of us. And so we said, well, we'll protect you. Well, we've sent over a lot of javelins and armored cars, and we're sending aid, billions of dollars. We're sending over planes to Poland to then backlog or whatever. We're doing a lot, but it's just like, is this enough? Is this, when we make a promise to people who actually do have a special relationship with us, is this what we mean when we say we got your back? We're going to throw dollar bills at you? Chunks of metal? Hopefully you can fly it? Is that what we're going to do? So I think long term, we have to be either very careful about the agreements we make, or we have to be very, very clear that when we make an agreement, we're going to hold people to it, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable. And that's my biggest fear of all this. Well, one of my bigger fears, that what value does our word have? Is it like the dollar bill where it's losing out to Bitcoin and Ethereum over the long term? Or is it like will it ever actually carry the weight that it once did? Because when America said it was getting involved, it got involved. Sometimes foolishly.
Yeah, I mean that's a very interesting point, and not far off base. I just think that it's tricky, and there's a lot of times when I have thoughts come through my head that I'm just like, oh well, it's just so clear. Here's what we do, but there's so many repercussions here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because you were saying earlier it's a 50-50 shot. So say things don't go well.
Yeah, so they were doing these simulations.
Yeah.
Like you can do, essentially, if you ever saw the movie War Games, like you're playing out the entire war simulation. Like what would happen? And, you know, it takes into all kinds of different factors. And it was essentially a 50-50 shot that Russia fires off a nuclear power. Because in all simulations, there's no end game for Putin without doing that. So either he falls and falls flat on his ass and people remove him, or he goes to the end game and that's basically his only way out of this to get leverage. Unless people, like on the American side, it doesn't get that far. We think he'll shoot off a nuclear bomb. And so we decide to negotiate, even though we have technically more leverage than him. So yeah,
but it's hard when you're talking about. Yes, okay, we have more bombs. We have a more tactical military. You know what I mean? This could be the one point where we feel good about what our military budget is, which is quite the rarity. But even if we can beat them in a nuclear war, you still destroyed so much of the planet.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? And so it's a scary thought. It's not like in. And I'm not saying that World War II wasn't a scary time, but nobody knew what an atomic bomb was at that time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, listen, we're a bunch of Americans. Yeehaw, we're going to go overseas and we're going to go whoop the shit out of some people. You know what I mean? And we could carry through on training and attitude alone. Whereas now it's like, yeah, you know what? If we went head to head with Russia, and we made a no nuclear policy, I strongly believe that we could beat the Russians. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
But you throw in that big red button, and it's like, well, fuck. We're not going to push the nuclear button before they do. That's for sure.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I should hope not.
Well, we made that mistake. Well, not well. We've
debatable, but we made that
the
decision before.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, we've made that decision before.
Yeah.
We didn't press a button back when. Well, they did, but it was out of a plane. Which is crazy. You should look into like how high up they had to be flying and all that kind of shit, just to drop those things, just so they didn't get hit by that wave. But yeah, it's a really, really scary thing.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you thought if they did launch a nuclear weapon, if things don't go well in Ukraine, you're saying that you thought they would drop
simulations.
It somewhere else.
Well, yeah, the simulations were saying that if it were to be likely, it'd be somewhere in the EU. Obviously, distance-wise, it would be very difficult for them to shoot a nuclear, even a, whatever, hyperballistic, supersonic, hyperbaric chamber, whatever.
Yeah.
The cool words that they detached all these missiles that are like more and more
Scary.
destructive. And so it would be very hard for them to land that over on an American soil where it would be truly detrimental, I mean, California is much further than some of the major landmarks in the EU. And
well, they'd have to get a submarine over here.
Yeah, so I think it would be far more effective.
Or hit Alaska.
For them to... Sarah Palin can't see Russia from her back door.
I don't mean to laugh because nuclear war is not funny, but...
But, the idea is that he would most likely attack somewhere in the EU to say, like, I will continue doing this. Like, it's not just, Russia has one bomb and done. Like, they have, 1,100 nuclear missiles or something along those lines, and we have, 2,400 or something. So we have, double what they have. But, I mean, the magnificent power, not magnificent in a good way, but in a big way, the magnificent power that leader is controlling is really hard to grasp. So that point of leverage, then, so they fire at the EU. Now the United States, it's a 50-50 shot if the United States gets involved and shoots off a nuclear bomb, or how do we go about that? And so it's a very, like you said, it's a very scary thing. And I won't lie. I was very, very adamant that we needed to get more involved. And I was like, no-fly zone is the way to go. That's what Zelensky needs. We need to stop the momentum now in Ukraine before he gets further. And if he starts attacking NATO nations, okay, well, then maybe China does get involved. Because right now, the way I look at it is China is sitting back watching what happens.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing it in a very smart way that I think they were supposed to get involved. And I'll kind of get into what I was going to later, but I'll start getting into it now. I think this was all we saw some of these facts come to surface in an interview with John Bolton, who is this Secretary of State, or was he Department of Defense? I don't know. Anyways, John Bolton came out, and he was one of the closest advisors to the Trump administration regarding foreign policy. He was the National Security Advisor, and he had said that Trump was going to pull out of NATO if he won his second term. So I think he was essentially, Putin was banking on Trump to pull out of NATO. Okay, so this is from one of his closest confidants saying Trump was going to pull out of NATO in his second term. And if the United States is out of NATO, they're no longer held to being responsible if Latvia gets bombed, which is a NATO nation. The Latvia is tiny compared to some of our other allies, but since they're in that whole alliance, we're responsible for all equally. Well, if Trump is out, okay, the United States is not meddling or getting involved here. We're not supplying Zelensky and the Ukrainian army. We're distancing ourselves from our allies. Meanwhile, China would then take Taiwan, and Russia can continue pushing forward to the Ukraine. And I think it was all a really big part of it. Well, Trump didn't win his second term, so that part is out. We're still a part of NATO. And if anything, Biden has done, I'm critical of Biden with a lot of things. But one thing I will absolutely give him credit for is reuniting all the allies. The G7 is stronger than ever. And so Trump being out removed part of that plan. And so China's sitting back saying, I don't know if we want to go through with our part of the plan because Russia isn't steamrolling Ukraine like it had planned. So much so that supposedly Putin has been having meetings with his, advisors and absolutely fucking pissed because they are not steamrolling, which is presenting a message to the Russian people that they're not as strong as they think. And he's not as good a leader as they think. So that is falling apart. So China's like, whoa, let's wait. Now, if all of a sudden Russia does start to steamroll, they do take Kyiv, they do bomb the shit out of Odessa like they're planning to today and tomorrow, they do steamroll through Ukraine, now all of a sudden maybe China does get involved, does take Taiwan, does start to help reinforce Russia and support them. Right now they've abstained. They haven't condemned. They've abstained. So they haven't condemned nor supported what's going on in Russia. It is what it is. And they've abstained. But all of a sudden they do start to get the support. Now morale goes back up in Russia. So that's like a fear that I have with this whole thing is like, if Russia does start to really gain momentum in Ukraine, what happens with China and Taiwan? What happens? All of a sudden, now you're getting all of the Chinese influence financially, militarily. It's a whole different ball game. And so that's why I'm so critical of we have to do more for Ukraine to prevent that momentum to, once that momentum starts going, it's going to be very, very difficult to provide enough friction to slow it down. So that's where I'm at with it, and I'm looking at what's going on domestically, and it gives me some fears about our own internal mechanisms. For instance, like I mentioned with Donald Trump, and okay, there's a lot there. He was withholding the funds from the Ukraine. That's why he got impeached the first time. He was withholding those funds. He was talking about pulling out of NATO. He was inviting Russia into the G7. He was at the G7 summit saying Russia should be here. They're good friends. Vladimir Putin's a good guy. He should be in this. He should be part of this group. He has a lot to contribute. So we have that instance. And then we also have
Do you think that him being a part of the G7, though, would have changed anything in the Ukraine? Do you think that he would have almost been slightly more apprehensive about going into the Ukraine? Or into Ukraine?
No, I think it would have just promoted his ability to control further. He would have made different and deeper alliances, in my opinion.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I really don't.
Putin being a part of the group, NATO
I'm not
and
saying
G7
I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm just saying, do you think that like it's kind of like when the bad guy tries to sneak into the good guys club, and then all of a sudden he starts becoming a good guy because he really realizes. That
I don't know. I don't know what story that is, because that is not what Putin would be like.
It's from like a cartoon or something for sure.
Okay. Well, I will say this: the Cartoon Network is not the inspiration of Putin, because he would not find a shred of goodness within him. He is not the Grinch where all of a sudden his heart becomes 3 times bigger.
Yeah, see, there you go.
By becoming part of the UN.
By pretending to be Santa.
Yeah, by becoming, part of NATO. So we have all that. We have the Russian money funneling into the GOP through the NRA. And now we're seeing even still instances.
Explain that.
What? Well, I mean, that's been declared since 2016. They were funneling money. The NRA, the National Rifle Association.
For the Russians?
No, the Russians were putting a ton of money into the NRA.
Oh, okay.
And NRA is huge donators
to the
GOP. And specifically several, big names. For instance, a Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio has been slow to condemn what's going on. Not that he hasn't. But then they have this meeting with Zelensky of Ukraine. It's a Zoom meeting. And it was with the U.S. Select Committee of Intelligence. And he is part of that. As the Zoom was about to begin, they asked them not to take any pictures because it could infringe on the security of the president of Ukraine. And what does Marco Rubio do? He immediately takes a screenshot and tweets it out. He has been tweeting all kinds of updates that he is claiming has been declassified. But he is tweeting all over about like updates and maps and shit like that. So I'm looking at this internal mechanism of American democracy, and I'm very nervous about one of the leading parties in this country actively helping the forces we are saying are bad. And so then we look at, well, what is the media doing? And the media, social media, cable news, all of these things. If you watch Tucker Carlson, I don't think there could be a bigger apologist for Vladimir Putin than Tucker Carlson here in America. And so I'm watching
you
that.
Think he's bigger than Trump? Or you think he's bigger than Trump?
I think he's more vocal.
Yeah, I don't think Trump is really necessarily an apologist.
He's not an apologist. He compliments, but
yeah.
Tucker Carlson is far more eloquent than Donald Trump, and he can frame things very similar like a Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro has a way of framing things in a way that is very believable. And so Tucker Carlson is very, very similar. And the way he's presented this whole situation is Russia's not that bad. They're doing it for their own security. I see on Fox News, what's his name was on there? Shit. Douglas McGregor, the nominated Trump ambassador to Germany.
Yeah.
And he said, the Russian forces have been too gentle, and I don't see anything heroic about Zelensky on Fox News. And so Putin has been able to manage things. He did it in 2016. We saw it with the Cambridge Analytica revelations. We saw it when, Facebook had to open up everything and show us how much Russian influence there was during the 2016 and the 2020 elections. Similarly, now that Russia has been shut off from all those platforms, they've identified the fact that Republican senators and congresspeople are not getting the same likes and retweets. Factually, that is statistically proven. So Russia was absolutely a part of the polarization of our country. Vladimir Putin knew how to destroy the country was not by nuclear bombs, but from within. And while I criticize Donald Trump for calling Vladimir Putin a genius while he's invading another country, he is a brilliant strategist at destroying other countries. He knows you steamroll Ukraine, you outpower them, you outman them, you outgun them, you outspend them. But the United States, you can't do that. He had us destroy ourselves from within. There was pandemic misinformation. There was election misinformation. There are still people chanting that Donald Trump is our president currently in America. And I know it's a very, very small base of people. And I understand, their intellect might be questionable. Their mental health might be questionable. But it doesn't matter. There are still people, and these elements of media continue to polarize. And that is a very, very damaging thing. And it's very difficult to heal that unless we really, really get transparent about everything. It's like in a relationship when the trust has been abused. Mm-hmm. The only way to come back from it is to lay everything out on the table. And you have to make the decision to say, we're going to work through this. But you can't hold anything back. And that might be what divides the relationship altogether. Similarly, this country, we might be just too divided at this point. Who knows? But we have to get really transparent about everything, and sooner rather than later. In 30 years, because of the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, we'll have access to all kinds of classified information about 2016, about 2020, about this Ukraine situation, what Putin has done, what we're doing to fight against it. All of that will be made available. But until then, we won't know the true story. And how are we supposed to heal? How do we come back from where we are? Because we are so fucking divided. And it's not just the right. I know I'm going after the right and the GOP and Tucker Carlson's of the world. But Putin knows that the people on the other side are getting fucking infuriated by the misinformation. And instead of saying, hold on, we'll go over it again. Let's go over the facts. Let's talk about it. And I will continue to explain that facts are facts. We have to rely on those and whatever. But a lot of people aren't patient anymore. They're not empathetic.
Yeah.
And we're getting lost in that. And that's another crucial detail that Putin understands. That by dividing us, it's not just winning over one side, but by winning that one side, it pushes the other side even further. And why would they want to come back? Oh, well, they're just too stupid to realize it. That's not going to benefit us. Those types of conversations. And I understand the anger on both sides. I get it. But this is exactly what Putin wanted. I do think it would be way worse had Donald Trump won 2020. Abso-fucking-lutely. But the problem is even though he didn't, his influence still stands. Like you were talking about with this quote. Did you share that on this podcast yet?
No, I didn't.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But his influence is still present. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. But it's still causing the fabric of our democracy to slowly tear. And that's what worries me most, is that Putin isn't attacking us directly. He will not nuke us, in my opinion. But his ability to divide us from within it's been substantial, to say the least.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on a rant.
That's fine. Did you get to everything?
For Trump, yes.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. What was the quote though? He just had one. It was a good one.
Oh, he was talking about
Oh, the
his
planes.
big war plan. We send in a bunch of our F-22 fighters with Chinese flags and bomb the 40-mile long convoy, and then we sit back and watch Russia and China fight.
I mean, brilliant strategy. Strategery, if you will.
Hannity thought so, because Hannity repeated it after him.
I'm glad you didn't tell me that because I would have gone even more bonkers.
Wow.
Anyways.
Yeah, there you have it.
Getting back to more about our domestic aspects was, the idea of, well, what is Biden doing? Like, what can he do? So there is talk of continuing to sanction Russia, and one of those sanctions could be removing all oil from Russia,
Right.
all natural gas.
Which, in my opinion, we should have just done from the get-go. I mean, what's the point of being like, all right, we're going to limit it?
Yeah, we're gonna continue to buy some and fund, your war, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what it's doing. And I do understand people saying, well, you need to do more, and we should be drilling here, and you and I were talking about that earlier, but that's not the answer either. But I do think we have to completely outlaw Russian oil at this point, and so gas prices are going to go up. They already have. I think in our area, they've gone up about 50 cents from literally like 2 weeks ago. It's gone up like 50 cents.
Yeah, I mean, they've been slowly creeping up anyways, but yeah.
And I think, as I framed it with Kevin, it's like, that's $15 extra at the pump, right? So if I'm talking about $15 extra, that's a Netflix subscription to support sanctioning Russia and do what we can. We can't do the no-fly zone and stuff like that. So fine, what we're going to do is take away all their money, and now we're not going to continue funding, their war by not giving them any money for their oil or natural gas. So I have to, spend an extra $15 at the pump every time. Okay, we can adjust. But that's
Well, you got to be careful there. Don't oversimplify either, because there are some people that can't adjust to that. You know what I mean? There's some people that really, that puts a wrench in the gears for them.
So I was thinking about that. Okay.
Okay.
We should, A, cap the prices.
Yeah. No.
And B, understanding the government is understanding of us and will help lower the costs by removing the taxation.
Mm-hmm.
If we're giving up Russian oil, that is going to influence the price. The government is doing all they can. That's another thing they can do, is remove the taxation on the gas.
Yeah. No, and I'm not saying that.
And that's like 23 cents.
I'm not saying there's not a solution for it. I'm just saying that,
Oh, I'm not trying to oversimplify. And I understand. $15 can make or break. I mean, dude, when we talk voter ID laws, I'm fighting for $5 with regards to voters, right? There should be no cost, right? So I understand. But when people are complaining like the cost of gas is too high, well, there's other things, like you need to then put it in perspective. Like you need to give something up then. I understand you have to get to work. That is something you can't give up.
Right.
But you have to give up your Netflix. You have to give up, the whatever, subscriptions you might have. And if you don't have any, I'm sure there's ways around it. But people need to realize, like, we're not giving up much in the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
Our children aren't singing "Let It Go" in bomb shelters. And we need to have that perspective, the humanitarian perspective, that it's the very fucking least we can do to support. It's the absolute least we can do. And so that's one of my biggest frustrations. It has nothing to do with Biden. The oil companies are making record profits year over year. If we're a capitalist, if capitalism really works and we're going to do the right thing, then those companies maybe need to shed some of their profit margins. Okay? And it's not drill baby drill by giving them more land leases. As Jen Psaki pointed out during a press briefing, there are 9,000 unused land leases for drilling, both oil and gas. Those companies don't want to go out and get more workers, more equipment,
Well,
and
they're
ruin
gonna
their
have to,
margins.
though. They're gonna have to if we completely cut ourselves off from Russian dependency.
Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe we can just pay $5-6 a gallon because people will.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I truly don't.
I hope not.
I think that you're definitely on a rant here with that, and you're getting yourself all fired up. And I think that
Wait.
I still have a little bit more hope for humanity than that. I think that if we cut ourselves off from Russian oil, it's going there's going to be an issue with supply, and so they'll have to do more drilling. And I'm not even a fan of that. I think we should all go electric.
Well, yeah, I
We said that on a podcast before.
100% agree. Like, stop. Yeah, we talked about it at length. Like, it's not just Russian oil dependency; it's oil dependency altogether. But we can't do it overnight. We could over the next 10 years or so if we invested.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Yeah.
we could build back better for America.
Yeah.
But we voted that down. Maybe this will bring some clarity to how important and relevant that is.
I think
we should be
regardless
so much more self-sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was talking with my cousin who's like in finance and stuff like that. And he was like talking about like, the 80s and 90s were all focused on outsourcing. That's what it all was, because it was all about margins. Make your margins, hit huge stock prices, cash out, get real fat with money. That's what they did. And then we had a collapse. We haven't fixed anything. We continue to watch our economy collapse. We rebuild it. Who bails it out? The middle and lower class, because they're the ones that take on a higher percentage of taxes in relation to the effective tax rate. Okay? And we continue to do this, and we're going to do it again. And so we do need to focus on self-sustaining operations with energy, with manufacturing. We know China is like on the cusp here. They're just watching to see what goes on with Russia. Why are we not focusing all of our efforts? These massive companies, these trillion-dollar companies like Apple and Amazon, why are they not focusing entirely on moving manufacturing practices here? I'm sorry, your margins will be cut into because you're going to have to finally pay your workers a living wage.
Apple's not supplying phones to Russia anymore.
Good.
No, I'm just saying.
I wonder if Sarah Palin's chucking them from her back door, though.
Yeah,
Just
maybe.
chucking them over.
Yeah.
No, so I think I agree with you. I don't want to be cynical or pessimistic about it all. But I think we also have to be very realistic that the gallon of gas is probably going to get over $5, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. I would say
The
in a
average.
matter of the next couple of weeks.
Right. So with that in mind, like, will demand all of a sudden, go down? I don't know.
Well, I mean, we've got spring around the corner here, at least in the Midwest, which is going to be nice, you know what I mean? Because people can walk more places or find other means of transportation. But it's not, you know what I mean?
Looking at the pandemic levels, April of 2020, $1.76 a gallon was the average.
Yeah.
Now we're up to $3.60, and this is a really important key ingredient here. Is it is not the president; it is supply and demand. People need to realize that it is not the government making decisions. They can tap into the reserves, and I talked about it last podcast. If we only used our reserves, we have 4.79 years left. That's it.
Well, and we already just pulled 30 million barrels
Right.
of oil out of our own.
And we're in what? We do 500,000 barrels a day.
Something like that. Yeah, it's up there.
It's insane. So I do understand, like, Biden has been preaching to the rest of the world, like, hey, you need to up your production, because we are one of the most oil productive countries. Like, we produce a shit ton of oil, and a lot of other countries don't. So they need to ramp it up as well. But that's up to them.
Yeah.
The average in California was $5.34. Some stations are charging over $6 in California. And that's because there's just so much demand. If you pay with cash, this is really cool. How to save on gas. Nearly 9 in 10 car owners are concerned about being able to fill up. Track gas prices. Based on the day, start planning out like how you're going to do your filling up. Like, I think it's like Tuesdays are one of the best days. I don't know. Look at, track gas prices, see what, stations around you are better. If you're traveling to a certain area for work, if it's better near your work or if it's better near your home. Like if you're heading into Cook County, not a good idea to fill up there. But if you're heading out towards, Rockford and you're stopping in, one of the farming areas, probably good place to stop. So do that. Drive strategically. It says sign up for loyalty programs. That's interesting. I sign up for Shell. So pay with cash. Gas stations sometimes charge 10 to 15 cents more when it's a credit card transaction.
Yeah, it's to pay for the transaction fees.
Right. Which is actually only 3%, so they're just jacking it up because they can.
That's true, too.
So, yeah. A lot going on.
Sure is.
I think we covered a lot. I'm sorry. Did you have anything you wanted to feed off of here or, like, chime in and, like, I don't know, Putin sucks or something?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
KGB.
Don't slap me. I know this joke.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I had, I had some thoughts, but
Like what?
I mean, this is 10 minutes ago, Brian.
Oh.
But I thought you did a great job expressing how you felt about that.
Yeah.
You did.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't want to go back to like a previous subject or point that you already brought up.
What do you think is going to happen in the next week? In Ukraine? Because did you see the whole thing about the nuclear plant?
Yes.
With the fight, like they wouldn't, like the Russians wouldn't let the firefighters in.
Yeah.
They were like shooting at them to keep them out so the nuclear plant would blow up.
Yeah.
Luckily they got in, gained control of both the fire and the plant again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
what
fucked up, man.
do you see as being an update in the next week? Where are you at? Where are you thinking?
I don't think that they'll take Kiev yet.
Really? You think Kiev like lasts at least another week?
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
hope so.
I think that they'll, I think they're definitely going to get help from neighboring countries, or at least from Europe. I think Poland will get those planes over there. You know what I mean? That's going to be a huge thing for them.
I heard Germany sent over shitty equipment, like it wasn't all functional. Some of it was like outdated, and
that doesn't surprise me though. But you know what I mean? Like when you have to keep in mind that because our military budget is so big, we don't sit on anything old. It's always new. Hence like in the movie War Dogs, that's why they wouldn't accept the Chinese ammo. Was it Chinese ammo?
Yeah. Or was it Russian ammo?
Maybe it was Russian ammo.
I think it was Russian from Afghanistan or something.
Yeah, like Soviet.
No, I think it was Chinese. I think you're right.
Yeah, but it was old ammo.
Yeah.
We have standards here, whereas I think a lot of other countries, maybe not quite as high because they don't invest as much into their military. So we'll see. The next week, I think that, I think that the Capitol will still stand. I don't know what shape it'll be in. But it's going to be interesting to see. I'm focusing a little bit more on what's going on in Russia, as far as, and not even so much with the oligarchs, but with Putin and with the Russian people. I'm very curious to see how long they kind of put up with it, and
wrapping up with a really feel-good moment. I saw a young Russian soldier who was surrendered, and he was like, the Ukrainian people were taking care of him. They fed him, gave him tea, and allowed him to FaceTime his mother. And he complained to his mother that like the Russian army isn't what they say they are, and blah blah blah. But just to like have someone invading you and then still do the right thing after, and feed and clothe and make sure they're warm and allow them to talk to their mother, like the humanity that's being expressed there,
that
huge. Does give me hope. Those moments. Ukraine itself its actions, its people, gives me hope for humanity. Because even in the worst crisis that most of those people have ever faced, they were still able to stand tall and do the right thing. And that gives me hope for all of the human race.
I think that's a good ending point, Brian. That's good.
Sure.
I like that.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Do
Jesus Christ, you should practice
I
your
need
lines
to
before we
practice
start.
my line.
Yeah.
Do good.
Whisper it. Whisper into your breath first.
Be great. I love you.
Love you guys.
I didn't practice my line like you do. Now I know why you do.
Yeah.
You never have that moment.
Yeah, you need to stop making fun of me so much for it because now you fucked up.
I did fucked up. I
Yeah.
did fucked up.
No, it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, YouTube, it was good to be back. I didn't know if it was a high five coming or if you were waving at the screen.
I don't know what I don't know what I was doing.
That's okay.
And then I just ended up waving.
Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So,
Just do what you're feeling.
do you think YouTube likes watching the sausage get made?
Yes. Somebody's been watching it for a while. Hi, one viewer. Brian loves you.
I do. I love you.
Yes. That's okay. What if it's Vladimir Putin?
I take it back.
But only if you're Vladimir Putin.
You know, it's funny. We talk about the Russian billionaires as these oligarchs. What do we think American billionaires are? They're the same fucking thing. They have control over politics.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, why don't we ever say the American oligarchs are fucking up our system again?
Yeah. Goddamn American oligarchs.
Anyway, Spotify, if you'd like to endorse us. YouTube.
Oh, gosh. All right, YouTube. It was a blast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Ba-da-ba-boo.
I'm loving it.
McDonald's.
Sponsor us, McDonald's.
Hashtag ad.
Hey, you know who runs Papa John's now?
No.
I think Shaq.
Oh, he's a big investor. He has like 27 franchises, which I love Shaq. So if he personally asked me to not talk shit about Papa John's, I would knock down the cost from $500,000 to $250,000.
I thought we were in the millions.
No, they would have. Under no circumstance would I be paid to say anything nice.
No. Just not to say anything mean.
Okay. We're up to $1 million. Inflation. You're right. $1 million. For Shaq, I do it for $500K. Oh, it was $500K a piece.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I will cut my piece in half. You can still get $500K. I'll cut my piece in half, and he only has to pay us $750K
Deal.
for Shaq.
Well, I can't do anything not 50-50, so if we're cutting it, we're cutting it.
Oh man, you're too generous. You just gave away $250,000, you idiot.
I'll give it to the Ukrainian people.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. Shaq can give us the $750, but $250 immediately goes to Ukraine.
Okay.